What's your best fire me, I fking dare you moment from work? Over the first year I worked there, I essentially took over most of the tasks in my department, which were previously held by other departments, and was done badly because of it. This led to a massive increase in productivity. I then found out I was paid significantly less than what others were making, and others in my position across the industry were making. So I go to my boss and tell them I had done all this work increasing productivity and I would like to discuss a raise. They said no. So I worked there for another year, asking for a raise every now and again, until I was offered a job that paid double. It didn't start for a couple months, so I held on to that job until I was set to submit my 2 weeks. I asked for a raise again, thinking what the hell, why not? My boss goes off, tells me I won't get a raise and says some very colorful things about it. It culminated with her telling me, if you don't like your pay, maybe we should evaluate your future at this company, to which I replied, already have. I took another job and this was your last chance to offer me what I deserve. I quit and walked out of that office. Friends told me that my sudden departure caused a massive backup of work that ended with my manager being fired for it. Told my boss 2 weeks in advance that I was taking PTO on Monday and Tuesday. She approved it, no problem. I take the days off and went out of town for a school thing. I come back into the office on Wednesday and I'm locked out of my account. I talk to the operations manager, my boss's boss, who was the person who interviewed and hired me, to see what's going on. He told me that my boss said I disappeared and didn't contact anybody for 2 days. I explained it to him and he said no problem. I talked to my boss later in the afternoon and she is furious. Starts saying how I didn't tell anybody that I was taking PTO and thought I just suddenly quit. I don't know what the fuck this bitch was talking about, because I told her 2 weeks ago that I was going to be out those 2 days and I have the emails to prove it. At this point I was the only person left on my team of 4 people who were there when I was hired. I was already planning on quitting in next month as I had to move for school. This bitch had the audacity to threaten to fire me. I said, if you feel like you need to let me go for your mistake, go ahead. Ended up working there for another 7 weeks before leaving on my terms. Even got to use the operations manager as a reference for another job. I used to work at a small, family-owned grocery store for a few years. We got a load in on Mondays and Thursdays, and we got passed over one Monday and the distributor said we'd get the missing load in on Thursday. So, what essentially happened was a double load and my 2 receiving partners were out sick. I was the only person in the warehouse / receiving at the time, and got to take on 15 plus pallets of groceries that needed to hit the shelves immediately. I was specifically told to not go up front and to do what I could while the front end crew covered the aisles and cash registers. Well, a lot of them were either lazy, untrained, or just putting in their hours so they could pay bills. I put in my earbud, just one, and get to work. I'm halfway through checking in the pallets when I get called up front. So I ignore it and continue. Then I get called again. So I head up there and get yelled at by a new hire with a bad attitude to do your job and bag for me. The customer was a regular and we got along very well, and she told me that she was fine and could bag her own groceries. Between the customer and the fact that I wasn't having it, I walked away. I had 3 years and 2 ranks on her, so I didn't give half of a shit and went back to my pallets. Then I get the newest hotshot manager, who replaced the old hotshot manager, who replaced the beloved manager who trained basically the whole store in my face about having an earbud in on the clock, which is allowed as long as you have on-air free, and said I could be sent home and not come back if I wanted to listen to music. So I gestured to the pallets and said go for it, these all need to be checked in and broken down. Have fun. I got to keep my earbud in. So I had that going for me, which was nice. Put in my 2 weeks notice at wildly understaffed job. 6 days later got sick. I call around and see if anyone can take my shift. No one is available. Tried to call out that morning. Shitty manager tries to persuade me to come in, even though I'm barfing everywhere. I non-committally agree to call in later in the day to see if I'm feeling up to coming in anyway. Call back, say I'm still sick and will not be coming in. Manager blows up at me in front of customers, being rude as F. Eventually asks what I expect to do about the shift needing to be covered. I say I have done everything I'm required to, and it sounds like a management problem to me. Hang up and turn my phone off. Aircraft technician here working on an air ambulance on a very small island in the middle of nowhere. We used to be too lame. Licensed aircraft maintenance engineer on this position cause we work 15 days 24-hour schedule, but a new company bought our old one and the other guy left for a position closer home, and after 6 months, they haven't been able to fill the position and have to send a guy 15 days each month. Paying flights and hotel that costs 100 to 200 euros per day, cause this is a very expensive and popular holiday place. I'm from this island, and after lots of years out of home I'm happy to be back. They want to lower my salary 30% or get fired, cause I get nearly twice what they used to pay. Told me to accept, or they will put another guy on my position. Yeah, good luck finding too lame that want to live here when you haven't find one. Important note, my usual job was 3 am to noon, and I was sleeping from 5 pm to 1 am. A split shift meant working 4:30 am to 8 am, and coming back to 7 pm to 11:30 pm. If I remember right, I had been working a series of split shifts and the wacky sleep schedule was really getting to me. I was told I would only need to do it 3 days in a row, but then it became 4 days, and then finally I went to sleep after the 4th shift, got woken up to my boss calling me and telling me I would have to work one more split shift. I told him no, and that I would come in for my usual schedule. He started to argue with me and asking me why it was a big deal, especially since I had worked it almost every day this week, so why not work one more? When I explained I was having issues with sleep and that I wouldn't come in, he was like, "But it's your job. I'm scheduling you for another split shift." And I just yelled at him, "Then I don't need this job." He started apologizing and that he would let me get some sleep. I hung up. I went to work the next morning for my usual split and everyone there was surprised to see me. My boss had told everyone he thought I might not show up at all and wasn't sure if I had quit. I worked my usual shift. My boss came in at 8 am and began apologizing right away when he saw me. Then he said, "If working a split was so hard on you, you could have told me no." I just turned and went to lunch. Owner of the company was avoiding the meeting where I get my raise. I waited over 2 weeks. Finally told my supervisors I'm walking out the door if they don't fix this. They told me to go talk to him. I told them they were the supervisors and it was their job to do that, not mine. I'm in an understaffed position at a job that is very difficult to fill. If I left then the rest would have gone too. They knew that. When I was 17 I worked a summer holiday job at Pizza Hut. I had transferred to my hometown restaurant from my university town restaurant. I was there for 5 weeks and hadn't been paid yet. The dickhead boss claimed it was because I gave him the wrong employee number. I hadn't. Anyway, after 5 weeks of no pay I rang him on New Year's Eve, i.e. busiest night of the summer, and said I wasn't coming to work because I wasn't a volunteer and I wasn't going to work for free. He told me if I didn't go to work I may as well not come back as I would be fired. I didn't go to work and had a fun New Year's instead. Then a few days later I called the employment tribunal, I'm in New Zealand, and told them what had happened. They called my dickhead boss. He then called me, offered me my job back, and was nice as pie for the rest of the summer. I was in the military and was trying to take my vacation time before I lost the days. They denied my requests for different times and I hadn't had a day off in 3 months, and I was working 12 to 16 hour shifts most days. I was beyond done. I was teaching some new guys part of the tasks for one job. Everything was fine. I went somewhere else in the hangar to do something else on the plane. This quality assurance guy that everyone knew was a pain came in. I did my stuff good and he never bothered me, so I didn't pay him any attention. He started talking to one of the new dudes. He then asked to talk to me and pulled me aside. He then asked why I hadn't told the new guy about some super obscure caution about water under a grate in the hangar floor. Something that had nothing to do with our job, so it didn't matter. He was just being a pain. I was over the job and him. So I told him, listen Sergeant QA, I've been denied my leave 4 separate times and I've been working for 3 months straight. So if you have a problem with the way I taught them, write me up. I don't give a ref and you can stuff it up your too. Tell my boss I said that. It was a little extreme, but I was pushed to the point. When I went back in I knew I was in deep because the guy walked out of my shop head's office and I got called right in. When I went in there, the shop head said, I heard what happened out there, submit the days you want to take leave right now, and I'll approve it for you. Then told me I could leave. That's all I heard about it. I was shocked. A manager threatened to fire me because I wouldn't make some system changes that would have led the company very open to a cyber attack. I had recorded a phone call between the manager and I where I explained the risk and that we needed someone more senior to sign off on that risk before I would make the change. He swore at me and told me just to fucking do it, which was all captured on the recording. He didn't know I was recording. At the HR meeting where he was going to effectively fire me, I insisted on bringing representation, and at the time the policy said I could bring whoever I wanted. So I chose his boss. The meeting starts, the manager cites insubordination etc. and I just sat there. When they eventually said we are giving you formal notice, I just asked, are you sure? He replied yes. My representative, his boss, at this point had said nothing. It was at this point I played the recording. I was asked to leave the room. I was called back 15 minutes later, apologized to, given a pay rise, and informed that the manager will no longer be working on this client site or any client site we supported. Was working in a restaurant, already knew I was sick, but our managers were assholes and I knew if I called in they'd be extremely pissy. Showed up to work around 8 am. By 9 am I knew I wasn't gonna last the rest of the day. Manager still made me stay. Around 9:30 I was pre-bussing my tables and just the sight of half-eaten food pushed me over the edge. Managed to hold my vomit until I got to the dishwashing area, but puked in a trash can immediately after putting my plates down. A co-worker saw me and vouched for me. When I went to tell my manager I was leaving for the doctor, he said, even with the doctor's note, if you leave work today you'll be fired. I said, you have human waste in a kitchen trash can and haven't even done anything about it. It's on camera. I'm leaving. Showed up for work a few days later and didn't hear anything about it. Ended up quitting a few weeks later for a job at a couple considerably higher scale restaurant.